5 everyday objects you didn't know existed. Number 5 is the toothpick. You may be surprised to learn that the world's first toothpick was invented over 100 years before the wheel. This ancient invention was a splinter. Nature's way of saying, "Clean your teeth, you dirty animal." But it wasn't until 1861 that the modern toothpick was patented by a man named Joshua Whitehouse. He dipped the ends of matchsticks in a hot mixture of sulfur and lead, then dried them in an oven for several hours. The result, a perfectly pointed stick that was smooth and strong enough to last for multiple uses. And if you were wondering, no, those aren't actually teeth. Those are just little pieces of wood that have been smoothed out by years of chewing. Number 4 is the rubber duck. Did you know that the very first rubber ducks were made from the sap of rubber trees? In the early 1900s, people would harvest the sap by making incisions in the bark of the tree, then collect it in little dishes. Once they had enough sap, they would boil it for several hours until it turned into a thick, rubbery substance. They would then roll the sap out into sheets and cut them up into the shapes needed to make a rubber duck. These ducks were so realistic looking that they were often mistaken for real birds, which led to some very confused birdwatchers. Number 3 is the pencil. Although pencils have only been around since the 1800s, they have quickly become one of the most popular writing instruments in history. Before pencils, people had to use quill pens, which were not only expensive, but also very time-consuming to make. Pencils were much cheaper and easier to produce, which made them much more accessible to the general public. The first pencils were actually made from graphite sticks that were wrapped in string or cloth. It wasn't until later that someone had the bright idea of putting the graphite inside a hollow tube made from cedar wood. This made it much easier to sharpen the pencil and also gave us the iconic yellow pencils that we all know and love today. Number 2 is the Q-tip. Although they are used for a variety of purposes, Q-tips were originally designed to clean the insides of bottles. Their long, thin shape made it easy for people to reach the bottom of tall, narrow bottles and remove any sediment that had built up. Some people even used them to clean the insides of their tires. However, it wasn't until the 1970s that someone realized that they could be used for much more than just bottles. A woman named Leonore Benetato was at a party one night when she realized she needed to clean her ears. She pulled out a Q-tip and inserted it into her ear canal. To her surprise, she was able to remove a significant amount of earwax that had been bothering her for weeks. This discovery led to the Q-tip being marketed as an ear cleaning product. And number 1 is the paper clip. Prior to the invention of the paper clip, people used wax seals to keep their papers together. This was not only time-consuming, but also expensive, as the wax had to be melted over a fire and applied to the papers by hand. The first paper clips were simply bent pieces of wire that were used by office workers to hold together the reams of paper they were constantly working with. These were then mass-produced and coated with a thin layer of metal. Paper clips have now evolved into many different shapes and sizes, but they all serve the same purpose, to make it easier for people to keep their papers organized. Comment below, which of these everyday objects did you find the most fascinating?